So much of these transition questions really just comes down to knowing what the transition words mean. So there are some weird ones here, but let's take a look at the sentences first, see what we get. In order to create the Global Positioning System, GPS, scientists had to develop an accurate mathematical model of Earth's shape that accounted for various forces such as tides. It was mathematician Gladys West who wrote the computer program that could perform these necessary calculations. Honestly, if I were writing this, I wouldn't use any sort of transition word, but we've got something here. Let's go to the choices. The one that stands out kind of most obviously wrong for me is choice B, in other words. This is a transition that just means exactly what it says. It means we're going to say the same exact thing we just said in other words, in different words. But these are two different ideas, right? One is how they came up with GPS. One is who did it. Those are different things. They're both related to GPS, but that's not enough. In other words, needs to be much more literally kind of the same thing. So that doesn't work. Now, secondly, also strikes me as odd because it's a time transition. It seems like there's steps in a process, but is that the second step in a process? Like first, they had to develop an accurate mathematical model. Secondly, it was her who wrote the computer program that could perform these calculations. I don't get a first, right? So I had to put that in, and even still, it feels weird. It's not, I don't know, it seems like she's the one doing the mathematical modeling. So I don't feel like it's a first and second step here. Now, in addition is very tempting because it's safe, right? In addition just means and or also. But that's not really a transition, right? Like that's kind of what we would pick if nothing else worked. And that's an important part of these transition questions is there's a bit of a game to them. We need to know the rules of the game. Words like in addition, furthermore, moreover, those are all transitions that don't really transition. They just kind of say, I'm about to say something new. So this is something kind of new, but we have to be sure there's not some other better transition word first. And we've still got one left, this word ultimately. And a lot of you are going to be scared by that because it is a little unusual and you're not sure what it means. But it means kind of something like in the end. Maybe a little bit of a so to an extent or a finally. It's a tricky one, but let's see if it fits, right? So let's try this like a so here. Or finally. I like finally. In order to create the Global Positioning System, scientists had to develop an accurate mathematical model of Earth's shape that accounted for various forces such as tides. Finally, in the end, it was mathematician Gladys West who wrote the computer program that could perform these necessary calculations. That's the answer. But I am really curious for you guys. Does that seem obvious? It seems obvious to me, but I am a native English speaker, and so I have a very intuitive understanding of the word ultimately. It just sounds right. It feels right. It feels like a good fit here. So it seems obvious to me. Basically, what's happening is like they needed to do this thing. In the end, it was Gladys who did it. That's kind of what the transition is. They needed to develop the model of Earth's shape. In the end, it was Gladys West who did the thing that they needed to do, right? Like it's just kind of naming the person who accomplished the goal that they knew they needed to accomplish. So yeah, I don't love it. Honestly, again, if it were me writing this, I wouldn't put any transition. I would just like say the thing about Gladys West without needing to transition into it. But I think a lot of you are going to pick D here because you're not sure how it ultimately works. You don't have an intuitive sense of it. And D is kind of a safer bet. It feels like, well, yeah, we could say it. And I agree, we could. But mostly because it's not really like that bad of a thing to put in. But I guess if we're looking for a reason, it's like in addition to what, right? Like it's not like the first sentence was really like giving us, again, it's like a step one, step two situation. It's not really giving us like a first thing. It's kind of setting the goal, and ultimately Gladys West was the person who accomplished that goal. That's the way I think of it. In addition, it's not a new thing that they needed to do. It's the same thing that they needed to do. It's just we're describing it in a new way. Hopefully that makes sense, but I do understand this is why these transition ones are hard for a lot of people. You don't have intuitive understandings of the transition words, so you might understand what the sentences are trying to say, but finding the right word is just hard. So try to memorize them as best you can.